Money itself isn't lost or made, it's simply transferred from one perception to another. Like magic. This painting here, I bought it 10 years ago for $60,000. I could sell it today for $600. The illusion has become real. And the more real it becomes, the more desperate they want it. Capitalism at its finest.
Welcome to Money Unplugged. I'm Chris Hill. Thanks for being here. Today on the show, I talk with one of the most prolific financial writers of the past 2 decades. But that was not his goal starting out. Dan Caplinger studied economics and law and was making a career in taxes and estate planning when, you know what, I'm going to let him tell it. And we had a fun conversation. We talked about how Dan hoarded money when he was a kid, the financial transition that most people never see coming, and the one thing that he would change about income taxes. Plus, a little bit about flying, because on top of everything else, he's also a pilot. So let's get into it with Dan Caplinger. So you're in Massachusetts now. Did you grow up in Massachusetts?
I did not. I grew up in Houston, Texas.
What is the first memory you have of money?
I think the first memory I have of money is my mom and I. Mom kept coins out of her purse, and she had, it wasn't a jar, it was like this funky coin bank that like it had a little slot and you could put the coin in, but in order to get the coins out you had to have the key, and the key opened this. It looked like a book, and like the key would open the book and you'd take the coins out. And I remember one of the favorite things that I did was every once in a while that thing would get full and my mom would get me and we would take the coins and put them into rolls. You would stuff the rolls with the coins. So you'd have to count. I love to count. I was a math kid. I love to count. And so I would count 50 pennies or 40 nickels, whatever the roll required you to do. That's what I did. And it was so much fun. And we'd take them to the bank, and I would go with my mom to the bank, and the teller would be, oh, what a cute kid this kid is. I'm like 5 or 6 years old at this point. I'm just having the time of my life. But I remember looking forward to that over and over again because it was just so much fun. It was so tangible too. You know, you had the coins in your hand. It just felt like something valuable. When you were carrying the rolls to the bank, they were weighty. It wasn't like paper money. It was you're taking something to the bank to put at the bank, and the bank was going to keep it for you. If you needed it back, you'd get it back.
And the bank was, when you're a kid, the bank's an important place. It's not school. It's not an office, but I have a vivid memory of being young and being in a bank and just thinking, oh, okay, this is serious. Like not intimidating or scary, but this is a serious place.
Yeah, it was quiet. It had that smell. It had that disinfectant smell. Sometimes they had lollipops, which was good.
Yes.
But they also had the bank vault door, which was, that's serious business, that circular door that it seemed like all banks had at that point. This was like in the 1980s is when I'm growing up. But yeah, it made that just a special experience for sure.
Oh, yeah. The thick door, the vault, whatever's in there, whether it's safe deposit boxes or stacks of cash or whatever, it's, yeah. I think that added to the seriousness of banks. It's like, that's
Sure.
the biggest door, thickest door I've ever seen in my life.
Exactly. Yeah.
Was money discussed in the home as you get a little older? Was it something that your parents talked about with you, or was it just sort of, I mean, we're of similar age, so money, for our generation, money really wasn't talked about a whole lot.
It wasn't talked about a lot, but I managed to kind of have my own financial education. And it's one of those things like, as a kid, you're never really quite sure where this comes from, but one of the earliest things that I did, I became a money hoarder. So elementary school lunch. I went to public school for elementary school. You could get like the tray lunch. I think it was like $4 or something like that. It had a entree of some kind and a milk and a roll and a dessert, like whatever the heck it was. My mom would give me $20 a week and basically say, hey, this will cover lunch. Well, me being money hoarder, I'm like, oh, well, I'm not going to spend $4 for the whole lunch. So I would turn around, I'd buy like 3 of the cartons of chocolate milks. They were like 15 cents a piece. They'd have like buttered rolls or something for 20 cents. I'd end up spending like one of the $4 a day that I'd get. I'd keep the other 3. And this was like a source of income for me. It's not like I was spending it on anything at that point. But yeah, I kind of got the sense that money was something to be saved. That was the obvious way for me to save it. And so I saved it. And I don't think I told anybody, and I don't think that anybody ever told my parents either, because I never got a note from school. I never went to the principal's office. It was just kind of like, hey, this is just how Dan rolls at lunch in elementary school.
But at no point, and I'm not suggesting this is something your mom should have picked up on right away, but somewhere down the line, doesn't she start to figure out these 2 facts? When Dan comes home from school, he really seems hungry, almost like he hasn't eaten a proper lunch. And also, he appears to have a lot of money, and I'm not sure where he's getting it.
Well, I was not showy with the money, for sure. I mean, the money was something, it was saved, and it was something, I got a bank account early, Chris, because again, it's what my mom did. My mom had money, and when she had spare money, she put it in the bank. So when I had spare money, I'd put it in the bank. Now, was she looking at my bank statement? Maybe. I mean, this is the days when you had a savings book. You had an actual book that you took to the bank, and they printed out every time that you put money in. They printed it out. There was a record of the transaction right there. No online. Like, that was it.
Right.
That was how you knew how much money that you had. And mom was not particularly pushy about like forcing me to share what I was doing with money or anything like that, in part because I wasn't doing anything suspect with it. It was just kind of par for the course. So, yeah.
So grifting, it sounds like, was your first source of income. What was the first actual job you had when you were a kid?
I got a job as a bag boy at my local Kroger grocery store. I was 17 years old at the time. Minimum wage was like $3.35 an hour at this point. The tips, I'd get tips every once in a while. But Chris, I made a big mistake. I went to the wrong grocery store. There was a fancy grocery store in West Houston. This was Randall's, and there was Kroger. And Kroger was not the fancy grocery store. So my peers immediately told me, Randall's, well, you're getting $1 tip. I'm like, $1 tip? What the heck is this nonsense? I'm getting 25 cents if I'm lucky for a couple of bags and taking this stuff out. But yeah, I had that job for a summer. I think it was summer between my junior and senior years of high school. And the one thing I remember the most about that job was I kept every penny, every dollar bill that I got, I kept it. I didn't put that in the bank. I didn't treat it like the other money that I had. That money was money that I had earned, and I wanted physical, tangible proof of its existence. And so at the end of the summer, I would get paychecks, but I would cash the paychecks, and I would take the cash, I'd put it in the same envelope with my tips. And so at the end of the summer, I probably had $500, and probably $200 of that was singles, was $1 bills. So I had like a wad of money, which was good because I felt like that was, okay, I'd worked a good amount of that summer. Here's my tangible payoff for that. That had meaning for me.
Where in the house did you keep this envelope?
Would have been in my room somewhere.
I'm just picturing, I mean, that's a very wonderful image of just an envelope getting thicker and thicker over the summer as you earn it. Did you, I'm fascinated by the fact that you treated that money differently because you earned it. Did you spend it differently? Like, what did you do with that $500?
I mean, eventually I put it in the bank, but I think that it was more the fact that that job had a fixed duration for me. I knew it was going to be a summer job. I knew when school started, I wasn't going to have time for this job. I wasn't going to try to keep it part-time or anything like that. I wasn't in a position where I had to do that. This was more my mom saying, Dan, you got to get out of the house. It's summer. I don't want you here all summer. You got to go do something. And so I did it. When school came back, I had other things to do, and school was more important for my mom anyway. And so that was the way that it was going to be. But I think during the period that I was working, it was critically important for me to have that as a motivator because let's face it, bagging groceries in 90-degree heat and huge humidity in Houston is not that much fun. And so it turns out that was the motivator for me to get through that summer and to like have that available at the end of the summer to be kind of my monument to, okay, yes, this is what I achieved and it's done and now I can move forward.
And maybe because of the heat and working in 90 degrees, when it came time for college, you headed north to the University of Chicago.
Very much so. Very much so.
Degree in economics, do I have that right?
Yes.
Was that the plan going into college, or did you sort of bump around and look at a few things and sort of settle on economics?
I bumped around because I was the math whiz. I had always been fast with arithmetic, and like I won contests and things like that. And so I went to Chicago knowing I'm going to be a math major. This is what makes sense. But the first thing that kicked me in the rear end on that was first semester, freshman year, math theory, which has no arithmetic. This is all about doing proofs and logic and things like that. And I was as bad at that part of math as I was good at the calculational arithmetic. And so I kind of floundered around for a while trying to figure out, okay, so I'm not a theoretical mathematician. I want to be an applied mathematician. So what does that mean? So I kind of looked at statistics classes. I kind of looked at physics classes because there you use the math, but there was a tangible output to it. Eventually, though, it was kind of like, okay, I've always gravitated to money. I'm at Chicago. Chicago's famous for Nobel Prize winning economists. Is this fate like trying to bat me in the head with this message of, okay, it's might not be everybody's fallback position, but it works really well as a fallback position for you. Plenty of application for the math in economics. And so it was not later than the end of my first year that I basically said, yeah, we're going to switch over to economics. And it was clearly the right decision for me.
And what was the goal after school? Did you start to zero in on a profession?
My first job out of college was at an actuarial research firm. It was a job I found.
That sounds sexy.
Found it in the classified ads in Houston. It was better than the grocery bagging job, Chris. And so, you know.
Yeah, it was indoors.
This is 1990 in Houston, Texas, after the oil bust of the 1980s. So not a perfect environment to be looking for entry-level jobs. But yeah, it was a two-person outfit, fascinating work. I know it sounds boring as all get out, but our clients were hospitals that were trying to, instead of paying outrageous fees for insurance, trying to self-insure their own coverage by setting aside enough money in reserves to be able to prove to their regulators that they didn't need to get commercial insurance coverage. They could just get excess insurance coverage. So that lasted me 2-3 years, but the money wasn't quite good enough. And so that motivated me to look for higher paying professions. That sent me to law school at the University of Texas in Austin. I worked for like 2 or 3 years before I went back to school for my law degree. Yeah,
I was going to ask, law school takes both time and money, but it sounds like despite that, whatever you were earning right out of college, you had done the math and thought this is going to be worth it.
I was fortunate enough to get a merit scholarship for law school. It was a very rare thing for graduate schools to do that, so I felt very privileged for that. That covered tuition, and I was, I like to joke, I'm kind of the founder of remote work. I was able to keep my job in Houston. I did it by computer like 3 or 4 days a week, and I went back and forth from Austin to Houston, about a 2.5 hour drive at the time, once a week, and worked in the office 1 day a week. It was usually Friday because I didn't have classes on Friday. And that worked. That gave me enough money to be able to make it and cover living expenses while I was doing that.
So armed with a law degree and the University of Chicago degree in economics, where do you go from there?
I had a buddy of mine who was working for a law firm in Boston. I thought Boston sounded really cool. All kinds of colleges, all kinds of stuff going on, educational stuff, business stuff. Center of the mutual fund industry. I'd done my honors thesis in undergraduate econ on index mutual funds, actually. So it held certain appeal. And I had decided I wanted to be a tax and estate planning lawyer because I'd loved the tax classes in school, and nobody else loved the tax classes in school. So I kind of felt like, oh, well, if everybody else is yielding the floor to me in this case, hey, let's give it a try. And I tried it, and I tried it for a long time. And it just, I think, when I look back, I only stayed there 2 years. And the reason I only stayed there 2 years in part was that I never kind of figured out how law firms worked, because up until I had been at a law firm, yes, I got an hourly wage for my grocery bagging work, but the whole emphasis in the law firm was billing hours. And so
billable hours.
The incentive was to be inefficient. Like your incentive was to be as inefficient as you could get away with without like raising red flags or something. And so like that didn't work for me because I kind of wanted to get work done. And so I'd try to get it done and get it done quickly so that I could go on to the next thing. I kind of got penalized for that, compared to somebody else who took twice as long, but was somehow able to justify that enough. And so that whole business model never really quite worked for me, but I did get valuable knowledge that I took forward. And eventually, I think that, I like to say that it was a long path that took me to what I had done for most of my career, and that every step of the way was necessary in order to kind of, spiral me into where I eventually ended up.
I just like the idea that a partner calls you in and says, "I'm sorry, Dan, you're just not being a team player. You're not being inefficient enough to crank up those billable hours." It also occurs to me, Dan, that like this is happening at a time when the late 90s investing starts to become more mainstream, particularly online investing, which must have appealed to you. The rise of discount brokers like E-Trade and Ameritrade and all that sort of thing. And is this when you start to put both feet in the pool of investing?
Yeah. Or at least move towards that. That's when I start at the Fool. I became a Fool not as a career, but as a community member. I was on the old discussion boards in the late 1990s. I would eventually get myself in trouble at work for spending too much time jacking around on the discussion boards and not enough time doing my work. But that's a different story. But yeah, I remember in like 1998, 1999. By then I had moved to Seattle. That was my second law firm job. And I opened an account with a company. It's called Brown and Company. And this was one, the that you could do trades on the phone, like not by talking to a person on the phone, but by doing the touch tone, push the, push.
I remember
push,
Brown and Company.
Push the ticker symbol and, push the number of shares and the pound sign. And it's like, yeah. And so, yes, I was very much being in Seattle from 1998 to 2000, very, very vibrant time, both financially and just culturally in terms of business. Obviously, Microsoft having a huge impact. Somebody with the same job as somebody else who happened to be at Microsoft instead of a government job or just a regular company. Like, stock options were real. Like, employees, rank and file employees were retiring at 30 because their Microsoft stock had gone up so much in value during the 1990s. And it was just sort of an accident of, did you get that job at the Microsoft, at Amazon, at whatever place it was.
I know this is going to sound crazy, but I just got a text message from your taste buds, and they are bored to death. And you've got good skills in the kitchen, all right? It's not the way you're cooking, but you can improve the flavors of your food immediately with just one simple thing. I'm talking about Mar-Mar, the most versatile condiment in America. It's spicy, sweet, and savory all at once, and it goes on everything. Breakfast tacos in the morning, sandwiches at lunch, pasta at dinner. Once you try Mar-Mar, you're going to wonder how you lived without it. It comes in original and hot, and they just added a gluten-free version. Go to ilovemarmar.com, use the promo code MONEY, and get 10% off. You know those cooking shows where they have challenges like, okay, chefs, you have to make an appetizer, entree, and dessert, but you only get 3 spices. That's easy. I'm going with salt, pepper, and Mar-Mar. Make your taste buds happier. Go to ilovemarmar.com, use the promo code MONEY, get 10% off. All right, let's get back to Dan. How much did you and your wife talk about money before you got married?
A lot, because it was my second marriage. And so I had a couple things. I had accumulated a decent amount of money before we got married. I had also gotten an inheritance from my father who had passed away. And so this was very much okay, I've been through one marriage, I've been through one divorce. I wanted to make sure that everything was going to be taken care of, that everything was going to be comfortable. She was in a situation, it wasn't a one-sided street either. She was in a situation where I felt like that was going to be of value. And again, being in the profession, I mean, I had been an estate planning attorney. I had worked with families that were doing this, who had much greater need for it. And yet I was able to kind of take that. And we have always had much more of a separate financial existence than a lot of married couples that I know. We both contribute to joint expenses, but we contribute to them in proportion to our means. But for the most part, we keep most of our accounts separate. And most notably, I invest my accounts, she invests her accounts. We help each other out from time to time when it comes to that. But we made it work, and it works really well for us.
Before we go to the speed round, I want to tap into your expertise when it comes to estate planning, tax law. I'm going to give you the proverbial magic wand. You get to wave it, and you get to make one change to U.S. tax law.
Wow.
It can be something small that doesn't affect a lot of people that you just think is dumb or annoying. It can be a big sweeping change. What are you doing with your magic wand to change the U.S. tax code?
Wow. All right. Let's go big or go home, right?
Absolutely.
$100,000 standard deduction. And nobody with income under $100,000 has to file a tax return. And everybody, you have to adjust whatever adjustments you have to make to the tax rates above $100,000 to recover that goes proportionally to the folks who earn above that. So I don't know off the top of my head what that does to marginal rates. It probably pushes the 37% rate, top rate, up to mid 40s or something like that. Not sure, but yeah, let's get most people out of the business of having to deal with taxes at all, because we're doing this interview 2 weeks after April 15th or so, and the amount of time that people spend worrying about this stuff, it could be used so much more productively towards something that is more important, for sure.
Sounds good to me. Let's go to the speed round. What is a thing you have bought that makes you happy?
I bought a 1990 Mazda Miata in 1990, and I'm now on my third Miata. It has not survived, but I've remained a loyal and happy convertible owner over the past, 35 years now.
And the previous two, did you just drive them into the ground like 100,000 miles or more?
Well, I had to crash that first Miata, unfortunately, being me. But the second one I drove into the ground, and the third one is 5 years old and alive and kicking.
Have you ever made a purchase in your adult life that you regret, and sometimes you find yourself still thinking like, why did I do that?
It's funny. The purchase that probably was the most formative for me, regretfully, it was not as an adult. It was as a kid. And it was, I saved and saved. That lunch money that you were talking to me before, one of the places that lunch money went for me was, I was a video game addict as a kid. And one of my favorite games was Pac-Man. And I saw in a magazine that I could buy a Pac-Man game. It wasn't a cartridge. It wasn't for Atari. It was an actual game for $60, which was a lot of money. Like, that was 4 or 5 months worth of lunch money. Saved up for that thing. I thought I was basically going to get the arcade game. It wasn't the arcade game. It wasn't anything like it. It was just this little handheld thing. Like, none of my patterns worked. It just was terrible. And that taught me the lesson to be careful of what you wish for, because it isn't always going to be what you think it's going to be. Don't make assumptions about marketing. Make sure that you see the product, know the product before you go on a long-term financial journey to try to get it.
Roughly how old are you at this time?
Like nine or 10.
And so in your 9-year-old brain, you were planning that one day a moving truck was just going to pull up to the house and two big guys were just going to haul this console into your, it's like, oh, Mom, Dad.
I didn't think it was going to be that big.
You.
I thought it was just going to be the handheld version, but it was going to be the same game. But it wasn't the same game. It wasn't even the same layout. It was just kind of like, like none of my expertise worked. It was just a total bummer. Yeah.
What is the last thing you splurged on just for yourself?
Just the other week, I took a trip down to the Sun and Fun Aerospace Exposition in Lakeland, Florida. I spent the whole week down there. It's the second largest air show in the country. I'm a pilot, private pilot, have been for 11 or 12 years. It's the first time that I'd gone to that big of a show. Great experience. Had a lot of fun.
What is something about money that you wish you knew earlier in life?
I wish that I had known when my parents introduced me to their broker at age 19 that my broker was not acting in my best interest, because it would have saved me from making some ill-advised mutual fund purchases with deferred contingent sales charges that by the time I realized I needed to back out of it, ended up costing me a nice chunk of change.
What is a charitable cause that you like to support?
I support my local community foundation. It's called the Williamstown Community Chest. But I think that the message I would want to send to people is to pay attention to what's going on locally. There are a number of these local community foundations that serve your community, and it's a great way for people to see exactly where their money goes, who it's helping, how they give back to the community. And I think a lot of people don't do enough of that. They tend to gravitate more towards the national causes, which are great. Not condemning anybody for that, but you can get a really strong connection to your local community by looking at whatever foundation it is that is established to serve those local causes and the people in your community who need that help the most.
Do you have a favorite movie or TV series that has money as a through line?
I will watch just about anything, Chris, that has to do with the financial industry, whether it's a documentary, whether it's a drama, but it really all dates back to 1987 and Oliver Stone's Wall Street. Gordon Gekko, a formative figure in my education, especially the timing of that movie, so perfect right before the 1987 stock market crash.
Still holds up, that movie. I mean, obviously there's the scene with the quote unquote cell phone. It's not like the mobile phone, which is enormous. He's standing on the beach. There's that. There's the fact that the stock quotes still have fractions. Yes. But just as a story and a drama, still holds up.
Yeah. And Charlie Sheen, make what you make of him after that, but just a masterful performance. You got Terrence Stamp, obviously Michael Douglas is just tour de force. Daryl Hannah as well. Tour de force. Everybody involved with that.
Last thing is a penny for your thoughts, and this is any sort of life wisdom you've picked up along the way that you want to share with people who are listening. And it doesn't have to be about money.
I think that the thing that I am going through now that I would advise everybody to go through sooner rather than later is if you have successfully put yourself on a path to financial independence, whether it's in retirement or before retirement, however you want to do that, start to think about what changing gears is going to be like. Because I'll tell you, there's a lot of people who are really good at saving, really good at investing, who are really terrible at figuring out what to do when career ends and it's time to spend and cash in on that. And they're kind of like, wow, I've done such a good job of not thinking about that and deferring gratification that now it's gratification time and I'm not sure what to do. It's a challenge, but figure it out. It is figureable. You can figure it out for sure.
There you go. If you enjoyed that conversation, please do me a favor, share it with a friend or family member that you think will enjoy it as well. Just text them the episode, and if nothing else, they'll know that you're thinking about them in a positive way. I'm Chris Hill. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next week.